Welcome to this very special edition of the KJ Masterclass Live, the show which ensures that you profit from your time spent here with experts, either through their industry insights, information, or simply learning from them. And today we have Isabella Sanchez Castañeda, if I'm pronouncing that correct, award-winning podcast strategist and producer for expert personal brands. She's also the CEO and founder of Isa Media. It's a digital marketing agency focused on helping our clients grow their visibility and revenue through podcasting. Welcome to the show, Isabella.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited for today.
You are welcome. You are welcome to the show. You are welcome to India in this online form. And I'm sure not just in India, but a lot of people across the globe will benefit from what we'll be discussing right now. We'll talk about how one can use podcasting as their secret sales weapon. But before we come to that, let's understand a bit more about you, about your journey, so that people know directly from you who they are listening to.
Absolutely. So I have been a podcast strategist for a few years now, working with a range of different shows. But before that, I was in journalism and I was really hoping to tell people stories that way. But when I got into my first real journalism job after graduating, I realized that this dream I had for so long was not really what I wanted, but I still wanted to help people get their message out there. And so really transitioning took a lot of identity work and a lot of letting go. But then really finding my way through podcasting, through marketing, through social media has been really powerful, really transformative. And I'm excited to share more about it today.
Wonderful, wonderful, Isabella. Now, let's understand, how should people understand? They know about podcasts, they know about podcasting, they've been hearing about it since quite many years, especially after COVID. But what is the state of podcasting today? Many people will think, it is there, but not many people are going it as a marketing tool. Some people are using it. Even for a lot of creators, the amount of pod fade is increasing, decreasing. So in that aspect, how should people understand the state of podcasting? And then as a marketing tool, help us a bit about that landscape.
Yes. So first things first is that podcasting is not saturated. A lot of people want to start a show and they think, oh, but someone else already started that show. Someone else already has been talking. Someone else has already interviewed that person. And the biggest thing to remember is that there's still a lot of room for you as the listener and as the host to go into podcasting. And that is so important. And yes, pod fade is really a big issue still. We have found that the majority of podcasts never make it past their 10th episode. There are a lot of podcasts in the Apple Podcast catalog, but most of them are not producing episodes. And what that creates is actually a lack. There is a lot of new listeners every single week, every single month looking for shows, but then they only find the same 10 big name shows and they're waiting for you to come in. They're waiting for someone new to really introduce something they haven't seen before, but most people can't sustain it. Most people are not planning well enough or focused well enough to actually make it to 20 episodes, 100 episodes, 150 episodes, and provide their listener with what they need.
Right. Thank you for that, Isabella. Now, let's look at it from two aspects. One is from the aspect of it as a marketing tool for entrepreneurs. That's where. And second is about the podcasters themselves, who are creators, who are the ones where there's a lot of businesses, coaches, consultants, and so many other people can come and talk on those shows. Let's look at the business part of it. How should entrepreneurs look at podcasting? There was a lot of emphasis earlier on that, let's everyone have a podcast so that, people can, all these businesses, especially coaches, consultants, can push their ideas, push their expertise on their own podcast, build an audience, and that can drive a lot of business for them. Then there was thing people said, no, you go on as guests. And then this idea. So I don't know, this idea dwindled or it is very much on? You talk about, that a lot of these businesses, they should have a podcast of their own. Help us understand, where do we stand on this particular angle?
Yes. So the main thing I say is that immersion is conversion. And that's not mine. That's come from a lot of really great marketing people. But being immersed in someone's thoughts can make you more likely to buy from them or to go to their event or to download their app. And so when that happens, you are building trust. When you are immersed in someone's content, you're building trust. Most businesses today are thinking about content in the sense of 30-second reels, a carousel on Instagram, a post on LinkedIn. And that, to immerse someone in your thoughts, is going to take a lot. And most businesses, especially small businesses, don't have the time to do that and do that well. So when you focus instead on a podcast and you put out even 10 minutes of content, you are just immersing someone in your thoughts, making sure that they understand the value that you provide. You have way more room to tell the origin story of your company, to talk about how it's going to help them reach their future goals, to talk about how it's going to help them understand the different ways that you provide a transformation, something that you cannot do very well on social media because people are distracted. The other thing is that you really do get someone's intentional attention, because to find this live stream, for example, you might have stumbled across it on YouTube, sure, but many of you who are joining us today clicked it and said, I want to listen to this. This is something I want to spend my day doing. And that is a level of intention we don't often see on social media. Because on social media, how many times are we waiting in line and just going as fast as possible? And so taking the combination of immersion and intention allows podcasts to build trust, which ultimately builds stronger, more loyal buyers, stronger, more loyal app users, stronger, more loyal just audiences and fans of your work and of your company.
Right, Isabella. So if an entrepreneur just goes and creates a podcast episode, how does it turn into, better business for them? They can come out as some expert of their own field, but in terms of the business, how do they talk about this sales part? Tell us about the ground part. How does it operate? How can someone who is listening to you on this episode, how can they just go and come and talk about the sales part without actually making it sound like they are desperate for clients? How does that work on the ground through a podcast?
Yes. So I'm glad you mentioned you don't want to sound desperate. And most of the time you won't. I think people are more afraid that they'll sound bad selling than they actually do. But the way to think about it is as an invitation. So if I tell you about a beautiful restaurant that I just went to that had the most amazing food and the most incredible thing, would you be mad if I said, do you want to come with me? No, you would be like, thank you so much for inviting me. I would love to go. Why are your offers not the same way? If I'm telling you about an incredible offer, something that's going to help you get you closer to your goals, I'm teaching you a strategy that is going to save you so much time. Why wouldn't I invite you and say, do you want to come along? Do you want to come to this restaurant that I just found? Do you want to experience this offer for yourself? The person is going to say, yeah, I would actually really like that. Or the same way that you would say to a friend, maybe you're not interested at that time and you just say, thank you so much for inviting me, but I'm okay. I'm not going to go. And that's fine. It doesn't break the relationship at all. I think most people are expecting to talk about their weekend or to talk about random thoughts that they have in their head, and then out of the blue say, oh, by the way, I have this offer over here, or I have this product that I want to sell. The goal is to make it feel really connected and say, I'm going to talk about the benefits. I'm going to tell the story of a client, or I'm going to tell the story of how I came up with this strategy, and then invite you to experience it yourself.
Right. So how does an entrepreneur bring the call to action into his episode? Say you talk about a 10-minute episode, 15-minute episode, and in that, how do they balance it out? Because it's a very tricky thing. It may sound to you very easy because you are an expert in this, Isabella, but for them, they are the expert of something else. not this. So help us on this part.
So the first way is more subtle, and that is to just say, oh, I was working with my client in this offer. So for me, I would say I was working with my client on monthly podcast strategy. And during that call, during that event, we talked about this and this and this. And then I am introducing to you mentally, oh, she has monthly podcast strategy. Interesting. And it's just a seed that I'm planting in your head. I'm not saying, and now you have to go buy it, right? I'm just naturally bringing up something relevant. Then, as I continue, if I tell you the story of this client and I say, oh, we were in monthly podcast strategy and she was going through a pivot and now she has a lot of clarity in her podcast, I can then finish that story and say, if you want to experience the same thing, if you really resonate with what I just said, I have spots open. I would love for you to join me, and you can learn more information through the show notes. And just including it in this very subtle, natural way, which at first will not feel natural. At first, you're going to be a little scared and you will want to hide. And you just practice by maybe saying it to someone in the grocery store, or saying it to someone when you're getting coffee and saying, oh, I was on a call for my offer monthly podcast strategy, or I was on a call for my offer of yoga classes, or I was in an offer of, I don't know, meal prepping is very big now, of, oh, I was working with a client and I was helping her meal prep. And you're just including this offer very naturally, more organically, without feeling this pressure to say, give me your money right now.
Right, right, Isabella. Now, in terms of, you talk about that some of the biggest mistakes you see these business makers, owners making in their podcast. What are these mistakes that these owners are making, so that they learn from you and do not make them when they are doing their own podcast?
Yes. So the first one we already just covered, which is not including a call to action. That is such a missed opportunity. So make sure that you go back, you rewatch that, and you add the call to action in your episode. The other piece is not doing solo episodes. So we have this wonderful opportunity right now to be talking to each other, and you've invited me as a guest, which is incredible. But I would want you to do episodes where you alone are talking and saying, this is what I've learned from interviewing all of these hundreds of people, or this is how I help you make money from your live stream. This is what I've learned about making money from your live stream. And you position yourself as the expert. And so for someone listening, thinking, if you've had a lot of guests on your show, turn the microphone back around and say, what can I teach without needing someone else there? So far we've said the mistakes are not including a call to action. The other mistake is not including solo episodes, monologue style episodes. And I would say the third one is just not starting at all. There's so many people who say, I want a podcast, I want a podcast, I want a podcast. And then they're afraid. And then they put it off. And then they say, but I don't have the right camera. I don't have the right microphone. I don't have the right time. I don't have the right name. And they just don't put it out. And that is the biggest mistake, because you're taking that opportunity away from yourself, and you're taking that opportunity away from your audience, your listeners, who would benefit a lot from what you have to say.
Right, right, Isabella. Now about the platforms. And there are different views about all these platforms. Some people say all these platforms are of no use because they can close anytime, you lose everything you gain. So a lot of people say you do a lot of things on your own website, go for one platform, two platforms at the maximum. Some people say go to as many as possible. What is your advice for, business owners and entrepreneurs?
So when you say platforms, do you mean like the distribution platforms?
Yes, distribution as social media platforms, as well as, any particular podcasting platform, podcasting network.
Yeah. So I think the advice to start an email list is always important, and to regularly export the emails that you have. So I use a service called ConvertKit, for example, and there I will be able to export and have the emails on a separate file, just in case I need to move platforms. But email tends to be the most secure. Phone number, I know WhatsApp is very popular now, especially for business and doing business broadcasts. So having a phone number and an email is always going to be the most secure. But that doesn't mean that we can avoid social media. So I still use Instagram to promote my podcast and my clients' podcasts. I still use YouTube. YouTube shorts are incredible. If you can pull and really get that out to a lot of people, it is so important. And I mean, TikTok, we're having a whole conversation about it here in the United States now, but the importance is that you are driving to an email list or that you're driving to a podcast that then drives to an email list. The good thing about audio with a podcast is that you also have a file. So if someone takes it down, hopefully you have all of them. You can go to another distributor and re-upload them. And that's more rare. I haven't heard of a lot of people losing their podcast or getting their podcast shut down. Usually we talk about that more with Instagram, but platforms like email and podcasts help you own your content much more easily.
Right, right, Isabella. Now, in terms of, who does this podcast work for, in even business owners or, as entrepreneurs, only for coaches, consultants, something like this, or specific business areas that it works the best?
I say it works for mostly anyone who has to have a one-on-one or a one-to-many conversation. But if you have to have a conversation with people, you need them to trust you. And so if that conversation looks like a sales call, or that conversation might look like being at the doctor's office and your doctor giving you a recommendation, it might look like a physical therapist. It might look like a regular therapist, a talk therapist, and someone who even has a pottery class who's teaching art can benefit from a podcast, because it is all about building trust with the person in front of you and saying, oh, I think they are the person to help me. And you can really modify different pieces of advice no matter the industry of business that you're in. I believe you should be having a podcast.
Right, right, Isabella. Now let's look at the creator side of things.
Yes.
Creators are considered as someone, all these businesses or experts, they come to them and they want to showcase their expertise in front of their audience so that, people think that they are the best experts around in whatever they are doing. And that also leads to sales for those people. The biggest problem is for podcasters, podcast hosts, is how do you sell yourself? And because you are so much dependent on advertising, which may never come or come in very small amounts, or affiliate marketing, again, a lot of you are competing with a lot of other influencers and all. So how should they make their own podcast as a sales tool for themselves? Is there a particular strategy for that?
Yes. So if a creator, an influencer wants to continue brand deals and affiliate commission as their main source of income, the podcast is going to help with that, because you can then bundle a package and say, well, I will talk about your product on the show, and or I will talk about your event on the show, or I will do a pre, post, or mid-roll ad, and you can negotiate deals based off of that. The other piece is the affiliate. So if I do an episode about the 5 tools that I use as a podcaster, and I talk about a camera, and I talk about a microphone, maybe I talk about soundproof panels, whatever it is, why can't I earn a commission on that? I can put the links, proper disclosure, say, hey, these are affiliate links on the bottom, but make money from that. And so if you are someone who's talking about, for example, business, you're a business influencer from the corporate side, and you want to talk about your favorite notebook, your favorite pen, your favorite computer, put the affiliate link in the show notes. And it's a way where people are, again, very immersed and very intentional with their listening. The other thing that I would encourage every creator and every influencer to do is, can they create a digital product? Can they create a course? Can they create something and have it be honestly their expertise, not something that they just make up or use ChatGPT for, but is there something they can teach and charge for? Maybe the first ebook that they put out is only $5, but that's $5 that then they can use and promote and then get used to starting creating as more of a business.
Right, right. Isabella, there is a lot of work involved in podcasting. So creators do it because they have no other choice, because they don't have enough money to get help from outside. But business owners can certainly spend a bit of money. They can get your expertise there. So what is the way you work with such entrepreneurs who want to work with you?
Absolutely. Thank you for asking. So, the main thing is really helping with that strategy. I believe that knowing what to say in your episodes is even more important than your audio sometimes. Obviously, your audio is very important, but if you are not planning how your episode is going to actually get someone into an offer or onto your email list, you are losing money. You are wasting your time doing your podcast. So, we start there. And I have offers for monthly strategy where we review all of your episodes. We make sure that it is what your listener needs to hear. And then from there, we can add on things like editing or recording. But you can find all of that or jump on a call with me on my website, ISA Media Inc. So ISA Media Inc.com. And you can book a call, and I'm happy to talk through all of it and see if podcasting is really the right next move for you, or if improving your podcast is going to be beneficial.
Wonderful. With this, it's a wrap on this very special edition of the KJ Masterclass Live. Thank you so much indeed for joining us.
Thank you.